So welcome to Twitter 201, Twitter best practices in strategy. This is an intermediate level class. I think advanced beginners would probably do okay in this as well, as would advanced people. But I would say if you do not have a Twitter account or have not used the platform, this is going to be going at stuff that is a higher level than you know. And there's entry level Twitter stuff that can be shared, but we want to really focus this time on folks who are comfortable with the platform, familiar with the platform, and just really want to get to the next level with their Twitter strategy. So that's really who my audience is for this. Although I welcome beginners to all kinds of trainings that I do at other times as well. I love tweeting. I love doing Twitter for absolute beginners, but this is not that today. Encouraging y'all to live tweet me, as you know, but we'll be using the chat function predominantly for the questions and answers and stuff like that. My handle is ELANA_Brooklyn, as you can see. And what the hell do? I am program director at New Media Mentors, and I'm also director of training at Netroots Nation. So I've helped put together some of the training curriculum you may have experienced today. Um, I'm kind of one of the old school people who came into teaching digital strategy back in like 2006 because there was no one teaching digital strategy in 2006 because we were just making it up as we went along. I was doing digital for labor unions, was first digital staffer for a lot of labor unions, actually, for community groups and nonprofits. And teaching was always a big part of my work, especially when it came to bringing digital skills to folks working in the front lines, working with grassroots groups. And as such, I co-founded Organizing 2.0, which is a digital strategy conference just focused on trainings that we've been doing since 2009. It's really New York. I'm in New York. It's very New York focused, but the past 2 years, because of COVID, we've done the whole thing online instead of in person. And we've had a really amazing international audience as a result. You know, really hoping we can do this in person this year, this spring, but if not, we'll be online again. And we always have good training streaming online too. So get on our email list for Organizing 2.0. And with New Media Mentors, uh, this is an amazing project I got recruited to do because I've been doing training for so long. Nation realized that people need to be able to do training throughout the year, not just during the Netroots conference. And so they spun off a C3, which is New Media Mentors. And through this, I teach digital strategy training year round. So what am I doing after this webinar? I'm going to be getting ready for an online fundraising training that I'm teaching that kicks off in the end of October with my friend Raz Pollux. So like digital strategy training as webinars combined with one-on-one mentoring is our way of doing it, because we find that, you know, going to trainings and conferences is great, but nothing beats the individual attention you're able to get and coaching you're able to get through doing a New Media Mentors training, where I'm able to work with you hand in hand, look at the back end of your systems, really look at what you're writing, what you're posting, and your strategy, and help you apply the lessons that we teach directly to your organization's work. And so today is Twitter Day. We're going to talk at first about building community on hashtags, Twitter actions, and then visuals. I chose these topics because building community on Twitter is essential to having a successful Twitter account and needs to be part of your Twitter strategy. And then the next three topics are because these are the things I see people who are good at Twitter mess up the most. So I want to help folks get through the skills gap there and be able to really up their game. But I'll start off with a little bit of relatability, perhaps. This is an older meme at this point, as it's been so long. I have a joke about running digital for a nonprofit, but it has to go through 5 senior staffers for approval at any point, any personality or humor will be removed, and the topic will be out of date. If you related to this meme a little bit too much, my suggestion to you would be, when you go back to work on hopefully Tuesday, hopefully you get off for Indigenous Day on Monday, you should tell your bosses that this weekend you spent going to webinars as part of Netroots Nation. And in the trainings, you learned that your organization's Twitter presence needs to have personality and voice, and it needs to be timely, or else it will not be successful. And since your organization invested money to send you to this conference, it would behoove them to listen to what you're about to tell them to do. Like, seriously, telling your leadership that you learned something out of training can help you bolster your arguments to be given the freedom to do your job properly. So take this slide with you, bring it up to management. Next time they try to make a tweet sound like a robot or give you a 300 character thing that can't be tweeted by mankind. The number one core rule I tell people about Twitter or any other platform online is that people share what they want to be seen sharing. Before you post anything, ask yourself, why would someone engage with this? And just because they're a hardcore loyalist to your organization is usually not enough of a motivation for someone to share something for you. I think a step that most groups skip is looking at what their members are posting and sharing and learning who do your members follow, what kind of things do they post, and understanding their voice and perspective in their social media shares. You see what influencers shares. For example, if you work on immigrant rights, there's a lot of not just immigrant rights organizations, but immigrant rights activists who are individuals with really big social media profiles. And building those connections and seeing what kinds of content they create and share can inform what you create and share. You have to remember that you are doing a conversation, not a broadcast. By which I mean you need to talk with your supporters, respond to their supporters, and jump into conversations that other people are leading and participating. You can't just broadcast out your press releases and think you're going to be successful. You can't even just broadcast out well-crafted, smart, well-written tweets and expect to really get engagement. You have to become part of a conversation. And oftentimes personal outreach is more effective than an organizational outreach from your account, which we'll talk a little bit about more. Reminder, if you want people to see what you're live tweeting the session of, you should be using the conference hashtag, which is NN21. That's the hashtag for the conference, not anything else you might have seen, NN21. So yeah, time to start looking at what your members are tweeting and what they're doing on Twitter. A question I'd love to get folks to add to their sign-up forms would be literally asking members for the sign-up form, for their handles on their sign-up forms. And if you have a list of members with Twitter handles, you can then tag them in your CRM as members who are Twitter activists and send them asks through your email platform to take action on Twitter. And that way you don't have asks to take action on Twitter going to people who don't use Twitter. And, most of your members won't have Twitter handles, but activists are disproportionately on Twitter. And I think you'll be surprised that regardless of age or economics, more of your supporters are going to be on Twitter than you think. And then find your members and follow them and reply to people. Whenever I see someone asking a nonprofit a question, not something trolling or assholic, but like a question, and the organization doesn't reply, a bunny cries somewhere. Because the point of social media is to be social and to engage with your supporters. So I'd love to know who has an active personal Twitter account. I know some of you guys were sharing that at the top of the hour. Feel free to throw that in the chat. Having an active personal Twitter account is really great. I totally understand that people's personal boundaries can sometimes make them not want to have a personal Twitter account that talks about political stuff at all, or you just don't like the platform. But like my advice to you, if this is at all palatable to you in the slightest, having a personal Twitter account in which you write both about the things you care about, whether it's X-Men or Star Trek or some sports thing that I don't understand, having a Twitter account where you write about what you love and where you're also boosting the work of your organization is kind of the ideal way to do things. Now, you may notice if you look at my Twitter account, I don't say that I work for Netroots Nation in this. And that's because I'm not a Netroots Nation spokesperson. I do mention the name of the organization I founded, but if I hadn't founded a group, I might not actually list my employer anywhere in my Twitter bio. I do list my podcast. You don't have to disclose exactly where you work. I mean, when you talk about an organization and what they're doing, it's good to say that you work there and that's why you care so much, but you're there to be a person. And I've had my Twitter account since 2008. I was working for Unite here at the time, and I've brought it with me as myself to every job I've had. And in every job I've had, my Twitter account has grown, and I've brought the value of my social media presence with me to every job I've had. And so, when I worked at Make the Road New York, I definitely was tweeting more about immigrant rights than I do now that I don't work there. But I still tweet about it a lot because I care. I don't tweet as much about the specific union I worked for before as I do now, but I still do elevate their work. And the different jobs and identities you bring with you help build an audience. And I can tell you that I am the only reason why a certain subset of New York City comics nerds know when a very hyperlocal primary is coming, who to vote for district leader. Because I'm writing in that Venn diagram of writing about comic books and telling you who to vote for district leader. So your expertise and knowledge in the areas you work in and care about brings value to the people who you're talking with, and wearing all those identities in one space is valuable. So yeah, share your handles in the chat. Who is an influencer in an organizing campaign? People have mixed feelings about using the language of influencer, but community insiders, people who folks listen to in their community, that's always been part of organizing. And digital organizing is just organizing. You know, when you show up in a new community, you want to know who are the people who have credibility in the community you're seeking to mobilize. And in this case, you're looking at thought leaders, trusted members of the community. You're not just talking to other nonprofits. If you're a nonprofit only retweets other nonprofits and only engages with other nonprofits, then you're missing out on the ability to connect to people who could be your members. And you should, you know, when you begin a campaign, you do some smart charting. You think about who are your targets you're trying to move, and then you think about who are the people who can move the targets you want to move. That needs to be part of your Twitter campaign as well. Who are the people you're trying to reach? Who do they listen to? Start engaging and following them. My tip for beginning a Twitter community is to develop a list of Twitter users who have more reach than you and to comment on similar topics. Turn on the notifications for their tweets, not forever. This is just for when you first start getting into a new Twitter issue area. And then reply to those tweets with your own insight. Think of it as an addition to what they posted. Do not mansplain. Do not say, well, actually, just contribute to the conversation. And also see what's floating in your algorithm. I don't have my Twitter set to top tweets. I have my Twitter set up to like the normal algorithm-driven setting, because I kind of want to see what is floating through and getting the most engagement. We'll talk about the algorithm in a moment. But that is my tip for when you're starting to build Twitter community in a place where you haven't really focused as an issue or a knowledge area before. And I definitely didn't keep my notifications on forever because I'd lose my mind, but you can start off with them when you're starting in a new area to get a sense of when they're tweeting. And heck, it can help you learn what time of day people are tweeting about the things you care about. Building a DM group for supporters of your organization is really smart. People who retweet your stuff regularly, who have engaged with you, who seem to care about the issue, even if they have 200 followers, throw them in a DM group, give it a name that shows that you value them as a supporter, and ping them, like direct message them when you have something important to share. Don't hit it up like 80 times a day, because then you feel like you're spamming people. But reach out to them regularly and say, hey, it would help us if you shared this. And also keep an eye on what they're sharing and share their stuff as well, even if it's just like community block party this week, you know, boost what they're writing, but DMing people rather than is great. You know, some organizations have their DMs turned off. I understand why. Harassment is real. Generally, I just have it so that you can DM me if I follow you. So again, that reminds you to follow your supporters and then let them DM you. And that is a sort of back channel organizing that you can do on social media. And it works on Facebook as well and Instagram. A way to think about followers is that you are not just looking for having the most number of people, you're trying to look at the most engaged people. It's true when you're starting an account, you want to aim to have more followers than you are following, but sometimes when you first kick off, that's not possible. Because one of the main ways to get someone to follow you is to follow them. How I like to think about it is if you have 100,000 followers and you're only getting like 100 likes with any regularity, that's actually not great. You know, if you get 100,000 followers and you get 5,000 likes, that's great. But for most of us, we're looking at a smaller scale. If your account only has 1,000 followers, but you have like 100 people who are engaging with you regularly, that's great. Like, tell your boss. That's a very high percentage of the people who follow you who are engaging with you. And you want to be engaging with the audience that you need to reach. Sometimes fewer people, so long as they're the right people, matter the most. And the engagement ratio is more important for your account success in the algorithm than just the follower account number. So if you have 1 million people following you and they're all bots, that doesn't actually help your account at all. I forgot to tell people how to do questions. My friend Ari is moderating them in the chat. I apologize. I cannot see your questions while I'm presenting. I told Ari, if somebody has a question that's like, please like tell me what this word means, to go and flag me and I'll jump right in and say something. Okay. Taking a look at what has been sent. I'm not seeing anything directly to me right now. Can you get a copy of the PowerPoint? Yeah, I can share some pieces of this with you guys. So one way to look at tagging other accounts in Twitter is to think of tagging as networking. When it's good to tag your allies, especially in the heat of the action. Like if everybody's at a march, you don't have time to keep looking at the timeline to see who has posted what. Having your organization tagged makes it much easier for you to just say, oh, here's the notification, hit retweet. But you want to make sure that you're tagging people correctly. Don't tag a C3 with C4 content that is going to be illegal for them to share because of our tax code. Make sure don't tag a union who didn't endorse your candidate, just because your friend works there. They can't share that, guys. But do tag your allies. And one of the great ways we did this all the time at Make the Road New York, because we had a lot of coalition members, is when you are leading something with like 15 other organizations and supporters, you can't tag them all in your tweet, but you can post a picture and tag up to 10 accounts in your photo. Saves you characters, and it signals to them that it's time to retweet you right away. I have even been known to post photos that weren't great just so I could tag more people in my tweet without taking up characters in my tweet. Better photos are better, but like a photo so you can tag your allies, on balance, probably worth doing it. Twitter lists. Because I spend way too much time on Twitter, I don't really use these. But for those of you who choose to spend your life in other ways, Twitter lists are a valuable way for you to keep an eye on who's talking about different issues and not have your feed be super crazy. Another thing that is cool, though, is when you create Twitter lists, people get pinged when you add them. So if I create a Twitter list that says something like Brooklyn organizers and I add someone, that person is like, oh, I am a Brooklyn organizer. I feel seen and recognized. And it's a good way to say to people like, yeah, like you're an influencer in your community, you're valuable and I'm following you. So that is a good back channel way to elevate voices in your community. One thing though, and don't do this right now, do this right after the presentation. Go and check a look at your organization and see what lists it's been added to, and make sure you aren't on any targeted harassment lists, because I've been on lists that I was added to for the purpose of harassing me or my organization, like hate mail stuff from anti-immigrant bigots and like anti-Semitic people and stuff. So just keep an eye on your lists to make sure you haven't been tagged in like a list called targets or some psycho stuff. Sorry, I shouldn't say psycho, or some threatening stuff. So I've been mentioning the Twitter algorithm a little bit. I think a lot of folks are familiar with the existence of the Facebook algorithm. You may be familiar with the Twitter algorithm existing, but the algorithm, the thing to remember, if you haven't noticed it before, when you first open up Twitter that day, boop, it says, it shows you not just the most recent tweets, but the in case you missed it. It's pulling those in case you missed it tweets based on an algorithm where it knows what you want to see. And it determines that based on recency, like what's been posted recently, what's been engaged with a lot. It likes images, videos, and GIFs a lot. And then activity, which means how active a user is. How long has it been since you've posted? Which is a good reminder. Let's say you run an annual event and your event is once a year. Guess what? You can't just let your account go dormant the rest of the year, or else you're going to have a really poor activity rate and your account will have bad ranking in the algorithm for when the time comes and you want to actually be promoting it more. So what do you do then? I don't expect you to create new content for your dormant event every day, but periodically jump in, hit retweet on some allies. It's never a bad time to retweet an ally. And congratulate them, retweet them and say, hey, congrats on your amazing rally, and then move along. That way your account is not fallow. Your allies know that you still see them and value them, and you're being a good community member by boosting them. And you're not spending a ton of time on stuff when you're not don't have anything really important to talk about. One of the questions I get most frequently asked is frequency. How often should you tweet? Once every 15 minutes, studies show. Now, Netroots, if you follow us on Twitter right now, we're posting a lot more than that, but that's because we're live tweeting a conference. But one thing I will say that we try to do is we try to thread things out. So if you're live tweeting a panel, you'll have an initial tweet and say, I'm live tweeting about this, that, or the other, and then everything else will kind of be a thread below it. And then like halfway through a panel, one of the speakers says something that's just jaw-dropping and impressive. And you're like, oh, people need to see this. I might kick off a new thread with that one. But the general idea is don't tweet more than once every 15 minutes. There's exceptions, like if you just tweeted something and holy crap, the cops are arresting the protesters, go post that immediately. But yeah, in general, like let's say you're tweeting about a report launch or something that's not super time sensitive in terms of the time it gets posted. Think about posting one morning, one in the afternoon, and one for the nighttime crowd. You know, if you have lots of different quotes from an article that you guys are quoted in and you want to share the article, get the different quotes from the article, share them at different points in the day or different days of the week because it can be evergreen for a while. But spread things out over the day, over the week, if it's not super time sensitive, because nobody is watching your Twitter feed as closely as you are, and you'll have more opportunities to get in front of people's face. But you can't literally tweet the exact same thing multiple times. But you can do it with minor changes, like maybe adding some different emojis. And you can also, of course, literally retweet yourself once. I tell people the minimum is try to at least retweet something every day, or think about it like every time you post to Facebook, think about what a tweet is that could complement your Facebook post. Hashtags are like keywords or topics, and it lets people find you for a real-time communication. So right now, if you go to click on NN21, you'll see all the people who are tweeting about our conference right now. My organizations, please search for existing popular hashtags before inventing one. There might not be a hashtag for all the issues you're working on. For years, I lamented the lack of an active affordable housing Twitter hashtag, but now there is one. So you should use the existing popular tags rather than making up your own one. Because if the whole point of hashtags is for people to connect to each other, you should show up at other people's parties rather than trying to make up your own party and like nobody's there. When it is time for you to make up your own hashtag, shorter is better so long as it's clear. What do I mean by that? Is you don't want a hashtag with like 300 characters, right? It's just hard to read. It's too long. It's unclear. But please do not do hashtags that are like hashtag A21 because you have an action on August 21. Why? There's a million actions called A21, and I can't even tell if it's April or August, and I don't know what year it is. I don't even know. That is just, it doesn't mean anything. So no more first, like, if something is as big as January 6th, you could do it, but like, do people remember J21 and which actions J21 were for, you know, a couple years later? I don't know. Have a name for a hashtag that is not an acronym that won't make sense to people. I love this example here because this tweet was by an activist who does not have a ton of Twitter followers. She used the hashtag Green New Deal when she talked about her experience tweeting, meeting Sanders. She did a great photo with it. And because she did hashtag Green New Deal and also tagged her organization, her tweet got seen and shared by a lot of people. If she wasn't tagging the organization, if she wasn't using an already popular tag, people would not have been sharing it. We still can't do accents and hashtags, which sucks for those of us who do Spanish. And you should always use camel case for readability. This example down here, that's camel case, capital for each word so people can scan it. It's really important for accessibility screen readers too. 2 hashtags max for tweets. Twitter will tell you this is the truth. Every expert will tell you this is the truth. Tweets with more than 2 hashtags are shared less. Tweets with like a whole long stream of hashtags, like nobody shares those. So what do you do when you have, so like, here's my example of a good way to use two hashtags. So people who were impacted by DACA were tweeting using the hashtag DACA. But like people who aren't closely tied to the issue, now people know what DACA is, but like back when this began, they didn't. We're like, I don't know, DACA is not necessarily a framing that resonates with people in their heart and souls unless they know the issue. So the immigrant rights organization decided they were going to make up a hashtag here to stay, that conveyed the actual like message and framing of the campaign. But nobody knew about here to stay because like nonprofits had just made it up, and it's a good hashtag, but it also, nobody was following it. So what did they do? They tweeted here to stay and DACA together in the same tweets. That way people who already cared about the issue would start seeing the popular hashtag and you could educate both people about the other. 2 hashtags. My favorite is Wakanda the Vote, where voters who were waiting in line to see Black Panther, and they could tag things with Black Panther because it was literally streaming in the entire world, and they were doing something that had to do with Black Panther. Like, it wouldn't be cool to just use a trending hashtag on something completely unrelated. But then they also used their own newly created hashtag Wakanda the Vote, which was it's just a great frame. It's a great frame. I'll actually be doing a training about that kind of narrative strategy. Wow, this slide is old. Apologize for the old hashtag. Later in the winter with my friend Felicia Perez from Center for Story-Based Strategy. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, I have a form that I will be sharing. Actually, Ari, if you don't mind throwing in the just overall sign up form for folks, if they want to take a look at that into the chat. So I'm going to take another quick look over here. No questions so far other than the PowerPoint. Okay. So let's talk about making sure that you're being seen in meaningful ways. People used to do newsjacking on Twitter all the time, and they don't do it as much now. And it's unfortunate because it's a great strategy. So Rent Live, people were doing, like that live musical thing for ABC or whatever. ACT UP found out that Gilead Sciences, who make PrEP and other HIV-related drugs, were going to run an ad during Rent because HIV is a big theme of the musical Rent. And so they watched Rent. They saw exactly when Gilead Sciences had their ad run, and they tweeted using the hashtag Rent Live that we saw your ad. Why are you advertising an HIV preventative pill that costs $1,600 per month? Stop Pharma greed and break the patent. So this is like my favorite thing because they're using Rent Live because Rent Live was trending, and they're pushing people to a petition. They're making it easy for people who are watching a musical to take action on an issue that they're likely to care about. They're also connecting it to their own Twitter campaign, which was hashtag break the patent. If they hadn't tagged Rent Live in this tweet, the tweet would not have been as successful. So like someone had to go and watch Rent Live on the weekend, but I'm assure you having an ACT UP activist decide to watch a Broadway musical is not a high bar ask. And we just made sure that like to have this tweet go up, they made sure to have the tweet go up when the ad ran and to use both of those tags and push the petition. Because you can't sign a petition in Twitter, but you can push people elsewhere to do a sign-in. My other hobby, well, this is my other tactic I'm really encouraging nonprofits to think about more is responding to corporate tweets in ways that undermine what the corporate counter's trying to do. So early in COVID, this health system started like they had like hired an artist to make a visual about how much they respect nurses. But I know that they were not giving their nurses PPE and were just generally treating their staff really badly. So what did I do? Montefiore kept sending me this damn ad. You can see here that it was a targeted ad. It says promoted by Low Cali Q Services. And I would reply whenever I saw the ads. If you care so much about nurses, why are you leaving them unprotected? Why are you ignoring their union, NY Nurses? And I would link to an article proving my point about how the nurses were suing the healthcare system. And what's glorious about this is Twitter doesn't know good engagement from bad. So one of my hobbies is telling people that Airbnb is evil. Airbnb shows me every ad that Airbnb runs because it doesn't know that my engagement is informing people about how Airbnb's policies are leading people to be homeless. So the company is wasting money showing me ads, and I'm getting more engagement than like they often are. And you can see here, we ratioed Airbnb on their tweet where they tried to slag the comptroller's report about how Airbnb is hurting communities. So yeah, Twitter doesn't know good from bad engagement. That can lead to a lot of fun strategies for you to try. And, I want to see more organizations like telling their email list, hey, this corporation who's awful just tweeted this, that, and that, and the other, especially if it's an ad, and then sending your email list to reply to the company's advertisement. So that way you are mobilizing your list to take a meaningful action on Twitter, because companies really don't like getting yelled at on Twitter. Same with elected officials. I mean, a super high profile person, like you got to always ask yourself, what's the theory of change, right? Mitch McConnell doesn't give a what I say as a New York, like, queer Jewish person. Like, I am not his audience. He does not care. But the conservative New York State senator in the district right next to mine, she cares, has periodically blocked me, which is illegal. And people on your list who live in the appropriate districts could be targeted to have them comment at McConnell, perhaps if they live in his state. But think about, does your target care about the people who you're telling to tweet at them? If it's a brand, the answer is pretty much always yes. And for elected officials, it depends where people are, and they can often tell where you are, but you can do a lot of targeted ones as well. Got no questions? Oh, yeah. No questions, but good conversation in the chat nonetheless. Yes, and thank you for raising that, Ariel. Our Airbnb, at least until recently, was operating on illegal Israeli settlements in Palestine. They're bad. Airbnb is bad. So another great way to do actions on Twitter is there's a platform called Organize with no E. They have just recently upped their toolkit, which I think makes it a lot more powerful than before even. But I don't know, do folks remember what is it called? Tweet storms and doing those kinds of Twitter forums where you would write a tweet and then it would get sent out to everybody at the same time to the release of the target. So you can't do those anymore that way. The new way of doing, like, Twitter blocks it. The new way of doing tweet storms is through tools like theirs. Basically, you would direct your email list to one of their landing pages in their system, in the organized system. You would give people on your list a prompt to write their own tweet. So it's not automated, but you're helping them write a tweet more easily. You can auto-populate it with some sample responses, but you need people to actually customize them a little bit. So I like this example. This is a great one. The prompt that the organization had was, DHS just released its new arrest and deportation guidelines. Let Biden and DHS know we are watching and holding them accountable. So they'd have some default language you could use to inspire yours. I guess if Mayorkas has his own Twitter account, which I think he does, then I would tag him rather than just hashtagging him. I don't know if there's a tech limitation around that, but and then you can manage GIFs and images to share right in the tool. I know that social media toolkits for actions are really popular, and I think they're good, but they're often too complicated. Like, you give people too many things to do. Saving a photo that an organization embedded in a Google document, that's a hassle. Like, if you give me a Twitter toolkit, a social media toolkit for your action, and you're sharing the photos with me by embedding them in a Word doc, you're basically asking me to screenshot it and then share it, because you can't just download an image from it. You got to make your Twitter action tool, your social media toolkits, a little bit easier. And using a platform like this can make it a lot easier for people to use. And then you're able to auto schedule tweets for action day. So if you want to get all these tweets released on a particular target day, you can still do that through this platform. I think it sounds pretty darn cool. And you get analytics from it, which is great, because then you can tell if your campaign is working. You can even sync your data with NGP or VAN or another CRM. And it helps you identify micro-influencers in your community. Like, you can see which of the people who follow you have a ton of engagement of their own, and make sure that you're following them as well. So I will pause real. Yes. So thank you, Kedar. Yes, put that link in there. So yes, you can't. Okay, that's a bummer. You can't use you can't tag handles for these mass tweets because of the Twitter API. I guess they don't want us to be so intensely bothering our targets. Yeah, so I'll go back over the organized slides again. Oh yes, I can highlight. I don't think I can highlight Kedar, Ariella. I think you need to highlight his comment in here. Oh yeah, you can do the next one. Okay, there you go. So yeah, looking at these again, boop, boop, boop. There's the tool. It lets you send people on your email list to an action page, like a petition page, except it's for Twitter actions. It gives them a prompt to inspire them to write a tweet on your particular topic, which means that, yeah, you're asking people to do more than just hit click to share, but these are more effective than just telling people click to share. But you're giving people some talking points to work from because you're giving them a prompt. So like, you don't want to push people to a blank page because, looking at a blank piece of paper and go write, go be creative can be intimidating. Not everybody's a natural writer. You're expecting a lot of people to come. You're expecting a lot from people if you're expecting them to just write something about your issue without giving them a clear prompt. But with this with this tool, you're able to give them a prompt, which they can edit or change, or it helps them develop their own tweet answer. And then they can choose from the GIFs or videos or images that you have uploaded to the platform. And then they can schedule it. And then you release those tweets at a particular time. And because those tweets are not all the exact same content, it doesn't get identified as spam, and they actually will work. I hope that answers the question. So it's basically a way to do tweet storms with the current Twitter environment. I hope that helped people. Got a bit more content to go through, and you can always follow up with Kedar for sure after this. Ratioing. I have a lot of feelings about ratioing. Namely, I just find it gratifying on an emotional level, and it has been successful in certain targeted campaigns as well. Twitter, one of the reasons I know that ratioing is effective is that high-profile people who use Twitter have asked Twitter to make ratioing harder. If ratioing targets was not effective, they would not have made it harder to do. It used to be that an asshole like David Brooks would say something assholic, and we would all just respond to him and tell him what an asshole he is. And the ratio is when more people are replying to your tweet, usually calling you an asshole, than have hit retweet to share what you've written. So this is a strong example of a ratio. Twitter changed it so that now, instead of seeing the responses and the retweets separately, it shows you the retweets and comments together, which kind of means they're hiding how unpopular something was. Now you can double click on the tweet and get more detailed information and have them split out, but most people aren't going to bother to do that. So I think it's possible that David Brooks looked at this retweet and comments and was like, people agree with me. But people who are smart users still understand when they're being ratioed. And it is a way that the throngs, us masses who are dying to be heard by those in power, can successfully yell at a target and shame them, or get a TV show like Confederate canceled before it hits the air, for example, or get that. We've gotten like 2 television shows canceled by ratioing people, basically. So there's something to ratioing. If you have a favorite example of ratioing a target, throw that in the chat, because I love these. Oh, sorry. So pop culture is a great thing to tweet about, because a lot of people spend their Twitter time talking about pop culture. And a lot of us talk about pop culture through a very political lens. So showing up in a live tweet of a show that people are probably already talking about it with a political lens. They are. So I encourage groups to think about live tweeting things like movies, live tweeting a show like Good Trouble, live tweet the Oscars or the Super Bowl ads. But ask yourself first, like, what are the shows that your members watch? What are the movies that they watch? And I think doing live streams and live tweets together is a great thing also, like for a community sense during COVID. You could say, like, especially it'd be good in winter when like people are at home and more locked down with like less social stuff to do. Like, you're doing work or organizing, say, hey guys, January 4th, we're going to do a group watch of Sorry to Bother You and live tweet it. Come join us on Facebook or Twitter or whatever platform it is that your users are on the most, and host that together. I got some useful emoji etiquette to share. Namely, by just having emojis like for humans with the yellow skin tone, And I think they were thought that that would just be because it's not actually a skin tone that humans have. They were like, well, that will just cover everybody. But the reality is, thanks to The Simpsons, probably, at least that's my theory why, yellow is sort of still red to be defaulting to white people. So a lot of Black activists on Twitter have been saying, try not to use the yellow, try to like use your actual skin color. As a person who is the palest shade of white, I don't really use the white fist raised because I'm worried somebody is gonna think that means white power. It I just if you think something might be taken the wrong way, just don't do it. But on the other side of it, do not use a brown fist or a brown face to represent yourself. Like I get that you're probably doing this to show solidarity, but it actually comes off as being digital blackface. Um, and when in doubt, don't use an emoji. I sometimes ask younger people, what does this emoji mean? Look to see how it's used, understand it. Um, when I was running the Twitter account for Make the Road New York, and I was using in the organizational voice, I wasn't using white emojis because I'm not representative of the organization's membership. The membership are Black and brown people. I would use emojis that represented our members. But if I'm writing as myself, I'm not doing that. If your organization likes to think of itself as being an organization with members of color, um, and it's not immediately obvious to people that you really are, again, don't brown face it. Like it's one thing if you're literally an immigrant rights organization and you yourself happen to be a white staff person. It's another thing for you to be an organization who'd like to think of yourself as being diverse, but maybe actually isn't. Anyway, quiz. Why was this tweet popular? And ignore my old hashtag. Sorry, I need to update that slide. Why was this wonderful, wonderful tweet from our friends at SCAU 32BJ so popular? One thing I will start with, yes, it's visually appealing. And it's large, right? Like it literally takes up a lot of real estate, and things that take up a lot of real estate get noticed. It's fun. Exactly. Being fun, having humor is so effective on social media. Like, please do that when you can. It takes up space in your feed. Yeah. It's clear. And what they're saying is one of those things that you read and you're like, hell yes. Like, they said the thing I wanted to say. They just really put it together well. The image and the words match. And they're using a popular meme format. This cup of tea with a comment in it using the ASCII graphic thing, was going around. It's a thing people recognize. And this was a good use of it. Like the graphic matches what they're saying. Now, I don't expect you to make these ASCII graphics yourself. I can't even pronounce it, ASCII graphics yourself. But there is a database online that you can just copy them and then edit it to put your words in it so that you don't have to tweet the whole darn thing from scratch. I actually have made them before myself when I needed an apartment building for one of those in this house we da-da-da-da, because I'm like, I live in New York. We don't have houses. We have houses. But yeah, we're not expecting, you don't have to go and tweet all of these parentheses and stuff. Like you can copy it online and put your text inside of it. This tweet performed really well. And it is extremely true right now as ever. Like any tweet you can write where people are like, you said it, like that's going to get shared. When it comes to tweets really truly being viral, nothing has ever gone viral by surprise for me. There are tweets that I will share that I will be, that I'm like, this one could go viral and don't. That happens all the time. But when something does go viral, I always like knew that it would. Not knew it would, but it was always possible, right? Like you start to understand what are the kinds of things that are going to really resonate with people, that they're going to really want to share, that are going to help them feel like you see them and hear them and are voicing what they want to say. So probably didn't explain this super well, but what I'm saying is plenty of the times I'll be like, this thing could go viral and it doesn't. We never know. We never know for sure. But I've never been surprised when a thing does go viral. It always sort of had baked into its bones the potential for greatness. And I think you can try to get yourself to that place. Like you have a good feeling about a tweet. And sometimes you'll have a good feeling about a tweet and it doesn't perform well. We live, we learn. And maybe it was the timing. Maybe you sent it at a bad time of day, and maybe you need to send it a slightly different time of day. Or maybe you sent it and then something crazy happened in the news and nobody was paying attention to you after that. A tweet can be less successful or more successful for all kinds of reasons that are beyond you. But you know a good tweet when you send it. Another great way to get interaction are to do polls. I did a poll to have people help me decide. I meant to put this in here. I had a poll to help people help me decide which photo of my cat Axl Rose I would enter in the Action Network Twitter contest. The Action Network Pet Photo Contest, which is run as part of Netroots Nation. I posted 4 photos, and then I replied to myself with a poll. Like, you guys, one of the options for when you write a tweet is to have a poll. I like asking people, I like doing polls because they encourage people to engage. They're inherently interactive. But do not ask people questions in a poll if you're scared of the answer. Like, for example, don't do a poll that's like, which issue should our organization focus on most? And you list 4 actions. And as an organization, that no matter what people answer, you're still going to have the same priorities that you had already. People can see the results of your Twitter poll. So if you poll people, who should we endorse, or like what issue should we focus on, and what they vote for on Twitter doesn't mean anything, don't poll them for it, because they'll see that you've ignored their poll. Anyway, I give people a day to do a poll, and humor is often the best way to really have a poll resonate for people. Question I get a lot, we talked a lot about the importance of using rich media with social media on Twitter, because people engage with it. It takes up more space. And like the human eye is all about like tweeting and responding to visuals and graphics. So I would say, people say to me, like, well, how the heck am I supposed to have pictures that are good to use during COVID, because people aren't doing actions as much? There's less opportunities to be visual. Well, we have solutions, but do not use stock photos. I mean, every stock photo was clearly a stock photo. People don't resonate to it at all. I ask our members to make fake stock photos for me. So you'd be like, hey, I need a picture of somebody working at a computer. Can you get your housemate to take a photo of you working at a computer? Send it to me. Like, have people who look like your members make your stock photos for you. I also will have some sort of evergreen images of somebody with a protest sign who's from the membership. And I don't want to imply that a member cares about an issue or attended something that they don't care about. So I will do this specifically with people around an issue that I know they personally care about. But like, you can build your own repertoire of specifically like what your members look like when they do certain things, and use those in the future. Like, I know what our members look like when they're phone banking. And let's say one banks that they do has really terrible lighting, which Lord knows has happened many times. I don't have to use a photo from that phone bank to be like, look at our members' phone banking. I can use a photo that is not dark and terrible looking, and it'll still be relevant to my post. Make your own stock photos. Another thing you can always use are memes. I really love this one Charles did back when Cuomo was still in charge of things. You might feel like the distracted boyfriend one is stale, but in some ways, distracted boyfriend will really never be. It's just an evergreen one. So the distracted boyfriend is looking, at budget cuts while ignoring that he could just tax billionaires. So, these meme formats, you can find them online. You can see what are the latest memes and think about using them for your work. Memes are the political cartoon of the 21st century. I mean, so are political cartoons. And when you can hire an illustrator to make you a political cartoon, do it. It's extremely helpful, but we can't all do that for all the time. But I think the way to think about these memes is like, these are political cartoons. Use them to illustrate your point. Like, I love this one from DSA Cat Caucus, right? It's great. And memes don't have to be a picture. It can also be sharing something around a meme tweet that gets shared. And I love this one from the AFL. The AFL-CIO Twitter account has so much personality. I'm so proud of them that they get to do that. We actually hosted a Twitter Spaces together recently. I'm curious if people are interested in hearing more about Twitter Spaces, which is it's like their audio platform they launched to compete with Clubhouse, because I have thoughts about it, but I know that not everyone's really in it. Another way, though, to get great graphics is like literally built into Twitter. They have a GIF keyboard. So you're writing your tweet. You want to have some imagery. do some searches, like look up expand the courts or look up reproductive justice. You'll see stuff that you can use. But you should also be aware of the context that the GIF comes from. Make sure that it's not like featuring a famously known transphobe or something of the nature. This GIF was made actually by some volunteers during Black Panther Fan Activist Con, and you can make your own GIFs. You can upload video, put letters and graphics on it. People respond to human faces. They respond to pop culture. They respond to motion. Make your own GIFs. But even if you don't have time to make your own, look for GIFs. During COVID, there's this awesome project called Into Action Lab that hires artists and pays them to make GIFs and illustrations for the social movement. It's amazing. It's like a free service basically for us. In the beginning of COVID, they reached out to me to be like, hey, tell people this exists. And I'm like, yes, this is the best idea ever. And I said to them, you know what GIF I need that doesn't exist? I need a GIF of people text banking from home. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll go make you one. And they did. They'll make different ones for different topics. There wasn't a suspend rent GIF until they made one. And then people started making their own too. And you can find all of these in the Into Action Lab Giphy account, or just literally by searching with your keyboard. Super handy, free art to use. As someone who studied film as an undergraduate, it kills me, but square videos perform better than landscape videos on Twitter, probably because people hold their phones like this. The first 12 years I was teaching people how to use digitals for movement work, I was saying, hold your phone like this, guys. Hold your phone like this. And you can't rotate your phone in the middle of taking the video. The video won't switch, your photo won't be sideways. Just don't hold your phone like this. Well, we lost the battle. We just hold your phone like this and gets vertical videos that look like responding to most on social, because that's how people are holding their phones. Caption things as much as you can, because people are listening with the sound off. You always want to upload the video. If you have a recorded video rather than a live, you always want to upload that video directly to the platform that you want to share it on. Video will always perform better in the platform's algorithm when it's uploaded directly. So like we have live streams of the Netroots Nation plenaries, but rather than sharing the YouTube live stream on our Facebook, I asked for them to directly upload the video directly to Facebook. And that's true for Twitter. Yeah. And we're doing subtitles, like it's good for accessibility. It's good for readability. Think about where the subtitle will be in terms of covering up people's faces or being clear or not clear. And there's free tools that will help you make those work. There was a TikTok session I didn't go to that somebody just did recently, but TikTok videos get shared a lot on social media. It gets repackaged into Twitter content. So I don't actually have an active Twitter account. TikTok, I probably need to do one, but I see TikTok stuff all the time repackaged onto this. This one did extremely well. If you want to go find it, I don't really know if I can watch it right now because we are wrapping time, but I want to say, thanks for joining me. This is what I do. I do digital strategy trainings. And my one I'm doing up next is on online fundraising. Ari, if you can throw in the feed the link to get more information about my online fundraising training. It's going to be October 28th and December 4th. It's a 2-day workshop. Each day is like about an hour. We're not taking up your whole day. So there's October 28th is part 1, December 4th is part 2. And my colleague and I will be teaching all about digital fundraising, writing effective copy for the web, making good asks. How do you have a landing page that will make people want to click and give money? Understanding the metrics for fundraising. So this is great for anybody in digital or your fundraising department. Would love to see you guys apply to attend. And then I've got lots of trainings coming up through the new year. I have so many, and I'm all about trying to match people to the training that they need the most. So I have a general form that Ari posted earlier to help me figure out more about what you'd like to learn and get you in the room. The one I'm going to be doing later in December / perhaps in January, kind of depends where the holidays end up landing, is digital best practices, where we look at writing powerful emails, writing good tweets, and Instagram and digital ads, and then pulling it all together into a plan that works rather than just ad hoc. So that'll be a really good training for basically everyone. Like I think of that one as being for comms, digital staff, fundraising staff, like pretty much anybody who works in a communications capacity in our spaces, digital capacity at all, could do the digital best practices training. And online organizing, which is my training that is actually aimed at organizers, like people whose job it is to go and get people to join their organization, take action, build solidarity. Like this is a training for them. So that's some of the stuff we have coming up. Yes, thank you, Ariel. And really good to include detailed alt text for all the videos and images. It's great for accessibility. It's great for search engine optimization. Like as much as you're able to do alt text, do it. So yeah, thank you, Beth. One of our questions were, there's no answer to what is the best time of the day or day of the week to tweet, because it depends on where your audience is and when. If your audience are people who are using Twitter in their social lives and not as much at their desks, then it's going to be after work or on the weekends. If you're speaking to people at their work, then it's going to be during the workday. If your targets are Congress, you're going to want to hit them up during the workday. Like think about when are the people you're trying to target most likely to be online. It's always about asking yourself who the target, like when are they online, when can they be seen, and when are my supporters most active online, and you're going to test it. You'll see the different times of day you'll post things, and remember you can tweet things more than once. So if your one at lunchtime fails, try again next week at a different time. So thanks again for joining me. I hope I'll see you guys in the courses.